Hello, this is Catherine from Accelerated Reader, reading books for you. Today, I will be reading Chapter 6, Rematch, from Tested Love by Liv Donata. Before I begin reading, I would like to give a big thanks to the author for sending me this book to read on my channel. In the description below, I've included links when you find and purchase this book. Don't forget to like and subscribe. Rematch. She had been in the back of the truck for hours, silenced, alone. The truck had been driving uphill for quite some time when it came to a screeching halt, tossing Sadie to the corner. Sadie couldn't see a thing. She heard the sounds of scurrying outside. Suddenly, the large gray doors creaked open. Sadie's eyes adjusted to the light. The van had been backed into a large concrete building, as a man surrounded by 4 armed guards stood in anticipation for her arrival. "Hello, Miss Stevens," he greeted her. "It's unfortunate to meet under these conditions, but I am here to explain to you how the retesting processes work. First, you will take the run-of-the-mill personality exam, as you did before. Next, you will be ushered to a room where our nurses will take your blood and give you a shot. We take your blood so that we can test it against other males who are being retested to see if you are predisposed to any conditions that may harm potential offspring or make organ transfers harder in the long run." Sadie hadn't even been rematched, and they were already talking about organ transfers in case of an emergency. Would she be expected to readily give her significant other a kidney before they even hit their first anniversary? Also, a shot? Why would I need a shot? She thought. She was deathly afraid of needles. Her anxiety resurfaced as she sat down at the table in the empty room. The short man, adorned with sunglasses and piercings, placed the exam in front of Sadie in a manner that said there would be no asking questions. She clammed up as she grabbed the pen and grasped it tightly, beginning her exam. All the while, the man's guards watched her closely. It took Sadie about an hour to complete the exam. Most of the questions were the same this time around, but there were also special rematch questions like, "Why do you believe your first pairing didn't work out?" and "Do you consent to be relocated as required by Articles 55 to 83 of the Rematch Act of '79? These questions, in particular, made her laugh a bit on the inside. Maybe it didn't work out because she had killed the bastard. Sure, she'd love to relocate. Everyone in her town, including her parents, thought she was a murderer anyway. When Sadie was done with her test, somebody walked her to the nurse's room. They sat her down in a blood-testing chair and strapped a rubber tie around her upper arm. Sadie began to breathe heavily. In a last-ditch effort to avoid it, she kindly asked the nurse if she could have a moment alone to use the restroom for lady reasons. Flustered, she stood up from the testing chair and walked out of the office. She just needed to splash water on her face, she thought. The guards seemed to be on break, and she walked down the empty corridor alone, looking for the restroom. As she walked freely for the first time in a while, she began to feel calm again. She read the signs on each black door leading to the end of the hallway. When she read one saying, "Staff Lounge," she thought maybe she could peek her head in and ask for directions. She pulled the door towards her chest and saw what looked like a regular employee rest area, except for the printer in the corner was running loudly. She thought, if the printer was running, it was possible someone would be coming any minute. So she slipped through the door and curiously over to the counter. She was fully snooping now. As she crept over to the printer, she jumped, seeing the bold title on the last page. The page read Results in bold lettering, and under the subheading, her name stuck out like a sore thumb. Without thinking, she grabbed the pages and ran out of the room, stuffing them in her bag as she ran. She made it down the corridor further, where she found the restroom and promptly locked the door behind her. How could they have her results before she was even done with the test? There was no way they had even evaluated the first part yet. Her thoughts swirled around in her head as she read on, clutching the pages. Results. Full rematch examination. 3:09:12 Pacific Standard Time. Sadie Stevens. Female, 19 years old. Paired, Robert Hodges. Risk factor, 6.7 out of 10. Reason for rematch, murdered spouse, ruled self-defense. Reason for spousal rematch, spouse suicide. Relocation, Fraydale, Concord, 184343, Bayan. Origin, Ostlake, Vernon, 19493, Bayan. Keep docile and tracked. Tracking number 829-748-252-52-52-52-9034-223. Official document of the country of Bayan. Sadie pushed the papers back into her bag and ran back to the nurse's station. She sat back down to complete her blood draw. The shot they were about to administer must be bugged. How else would they be able to track her without her consent? How could they have the results of her testing before they were even completed? She now knew what she would have to do. She would have to comply. She would have to get her new match, Robert, on her side. Once she had done that, she would have to expose Bayan for the dictatorship it had become. Lastly, she would have to guard those papers with her life or die trying. They were the only bit of proof Sadie had. The testing process seemed to go on for a lifetime. Along with the personality test, the blood draw, and the shot, Sadie also had to take a psych evaluation to prove she was ready to go back into the new world with her new match. Of course, she wasn't ready to go back and start pretending again. The only good thing about the trial and retesting period was that she could be herself. She wasn't expected to act like a housewife in love. Sadly, now it was time to go back to pretending. She had a wedding to attend. This wedding wasn't that of glitz and glamour. It wasn't as fairy tale as her wedding with Clark. There was no crystal staircase or tulle covered stage. Instead, there she sat in an empty courtroom attached to the rematching center. She was in a pew illuminated by fluorescent ceiling lights when he walked in. Robert Hodges, in all his glory. Just a few years older than Sadie, he stood tall in the hallway, wearing a corduroy suit. His hazel eyes sparkled with hope as they locked eyes. It was love at first sight. They held up the ceremony with their hours of conversation. If they weren't in love yet, they had definitely become best friends. It was nice for Sadie to finally feel she had someone to trust. He was mild-mannered and kind with his honesty. He worked as a lawyer. He spent his weekends doing social work and attending various galas. He had a fun-loved personality, a dog named Chuck, and a stable full of prize-winning horses. Soon Sadie would be on her way to the Hodges estate as Mrs. Sadie Hodges. Maybe for the first time in a while she'd have a good night's sleep and break the news to Robert over breakfast the next morning. She would have to tell him her whole story, what she had done and what she had found. Hopefully she had enough proof to get him to believe her. Stay tuned for the next chapter, New Beginnings. Thank you for listening. Don't forget to like and subscribe. In the description below, I've included links for me to find and purchase this book.